Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Faith Rachel. I am the president of Student Government Association of Richland Campus. Yeah. Now, the Student Government Association is, as its name, the government within the student body. We are the voice of the students. Our job as elected officers is to act as the intermediary between the students and the administration. We advocate for students and help facilitate student administration relations and provide a way for students to express their needs and concerns. Part of our many responsibilities is to educate and promote civic engagement, which is why we are pleased to have the Richardson area Democrats here. I would like to introduce the Richardson area Democrat President, Jeannie Laughlin.
Well, thank you, Faith, and thank you to the Student Government Association. They have done just such a great job preparing for us and making this just such a welcoming and easy experience for us. Yeah. This is our second time working with this group of students, and it is honestly a pleasure and an honor to work with very professional and helpful, kind people. When I called Kelly Sonnenstein, who is their student life coordinator, and asked her about whether we could coordinate and do this event here together, she told me they'd just gotten back from a national competition and they were representing Texas. They had to first qualify to be the winners in Texas. So out of all the student government associations in Texas, they were the winners, number one. And they went to a national competition. She told me what the name of it was. Skills USA, thank you. I didn't write it down, didn't think I needed to. Skills USA, and this was a, sorry. There was, it's okay. They won 2 silver awards and 1 gold award. The gold was in community service, and their service was, ironically, voter education. We truly appreciate the work that they do and being able to collaborate with them again. Thank you. And thank you all for coming today. Before we get started, there are some people that I want to acknowledge. We have some elected officials here today that I want to thank for taking time out of your schedule and for representing us so well in all the ways that you do. I'm going to acknowledge them now. Dr. Catalina Garcia is trustee for the Dallas College. We're pleased to have you here today, and she would like for us to know that there is a sign up out on the table for a newsletter that's coming out monthly, and that is to do with saving Dallas College. So if you would please sign up for her newsletter, that'd be great. Our next elected official is Vanessa Pacheco. She is with the Richardson ISD Board of Trustees. Thank you for coming today. Dan Barrios is our city councilman. Thank you for coming today, Dan. I think I do. Oh, there you are. Tara Lance is here from the Plano ISD. And I think Michael was going to come, but I don't see him anywhere. He's also a Plano ISD Board of Trustees. Kendall Scudder came in a little late today. He is the finance chair of the Texas Democratic Party. Thank you for being here today. We have some justices and judges here that are already elected and running for election again. So they're both elected and running for office again, re-election. Justice Ken Moldberg is here. Justice Amanda Rychak. Thank you for coming. Judge Tina Clinton is here. And am I missing any electeds? I'm sorry? Nope. Okay. Well, very good. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for honoring us with your presence today and for the service that you have for us. Also, there are some folks that are running for office that we won't see on stage today. I think there was a couple of people that signed up that I don't see, but I am going to acknowledge Kim Bailey. She is running for the 162nd Civil District Court. Thank you for coming today, Kim. Is there anybody else that's running for office that I have not acknowledged, like you didn't get on my... Oh, well, there are people that are speaking, so yes. We have several people that are running that are going to be on stage, so we'll introduce those people as they come up on stage. We couldn't have done this by ourselves. This is a joint effort, and the clubs that joined with us in co-hosting this, I'd like for you all to stand up. I was going to have you come up here, but the logistics might be a little tough. So if you'll just stand up. North Dallas, Texas Democratic Women. Thank you. The Garland Area Democrats. Funky East Dallas Democrats. Always an enthusiastic bunch. The Texas Coalition of Black Democrats. And the Plano Area Democrats. Women of Dallas United for Action. Thank you. Lake Highlands Blue and Lake Highlands White Rock Democrats. Thank you. And I want to tell all of y'all, if you're not a part of one of these clubs or more, you can join as many as you want to. Please support your local clubs. This is the backbone of what's going on in local politics. And there's somebody that's telling me I'm forgetting them. Oh my gosh, yes, thank you. Preston Hollow Democrats, my gosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you guys do. It's a lot of work. I'm sorry, say it again. Allen Area Democrats. Thank you. Thank you. All right. One more shout out to the educators that are in the room. How many educators are here today? Would you please stand up? If you are, thank you. Thank you. Last year, RAD raised about $1,600 to help our teachers buy supplies. That comes out of their own pockets because Texas Republicans are starving our public schools. This year, the House narrowly defeated the voucher bill, and the governor targeted the Republicans who voted for public education against the voucher scams. Now he's coming for the precious few left, as well as our electeds that are standing strong for public schools. We have to stand with these candidates and hold the seats that we have and flip the ones that we can. We'll start today with our program, our actual speaking program, with Representative Ana-Maria Ramos. And as they are going to just introduce each other, so you can grab that thing there, and there you go. Thank you, guys.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ana-Maria, and I am the only Democratic candidate running for Speaker of the House. Yes. Thank you so much. And the reason I'm running is because of us. I'm doing it for you, for us, for our public schools. Now listen, yes, thank you. Now, we know that there is currently a Republican majority. Boo, yes. But we cannot tell our candidates and people like Mihaela, okay, it's a foregone conclusion, we have vouchers, let's call it a day. Absolutely not. We have to fight. We have to fight. Republicans do not want us to be talking about vouchers. They do not want us to let our Republican neighbors know that people like Angie Chin-Button voted for vouchers. They don't want us talking about it. They want the conversation to move on. And I thought, you know what? They don't want us to talk about it, so I'm going to force them to talk about it, and I'm running for Speaker. Yes. So they try to make this sound a little complicated. It's inside baseball, you don't know. No, it's not that complicated. The truth is, whoever is the Speaker of the House needs 76 votes. We're in a room like this on swearing-in day. At the beginning of session, every 2 years, we are all in a room like this, Democrats and Republicans. And what we do session after session is sit down like this, and we just watch. Democrats just watch while Republicans decide who they're going to pick to be the Speaker, what they're going to decide to do with our future. And Democrats, guess what they do? They sit there and vote for that Republican Speaker. Yes, I am the only Democrat who has not voted for Phelan. Yes. And it takes courage. It takes courage because they're like, oh, you're in Dallas, they're going to put you on ag committee. Okay, well then I'm going to make the best out of the North Texas Food Bank. I'm going to fight for the North Texas Food Bank. Whatever it takes. So the truth is, and I need your help. This is a call to action for you. I need you to put pressure on Democratic representatives to stick with their Democratic candidate for Speaker of the House. We need to stick together. Yes. We need to be at the table when they're making decisions, when we're talking about it. We need to be at the table because if not, we know. We're on the menu, right? If we're not at the table, if they're not talking to us, which they thought they weren't going to have to, well, now they do. Now they're like, oh, shoot. Now, Ana-Maria and the Democrats, if they peel off from us, we are so fragmented and chaotic, we're going to now have to talk to those people. Well, hell yeah. We're fighting for our public schools. You do. You will, and we're going to fight. We are going to fight like hell for our public schools. And I tell you, when we flip these 2 seats in Dallas County, we elect Averie Bishop, we elect Liz Ginsberg. Yes. Yes. They're going to start looking the other way, and they're going to do what they did when we flipped those 12 seats in 2018. Do you all remember? That session when we flipped, and I was one of them because of you, and they told me you could never win. They said in this seat they will never elect a Democrat. And what did you guys do? Said, hell no. You were knocking on those doors. You were talking to neighbors. You were raising money. You were writing postcards. You didn't stop because you saw that there was a better vision. We could have a fighter in this community. That's what you elected, and now I'm going into my 4th session because of you. Yes. We can do it again. We will do it again, and we will force them. And when we got elected and we flipped those 12 seats, guess what? They didn't talk about bathroom bills. They didn't talk about campus carry. They put money into our public schools that session because they knew that you were going to come back for revenge at the voting booth. They knew that. We got to show them that again. We have to keep talking about protecting our public schools. We have to hold our own members, Democratic members and neighbors accountable. We cannot allow this to be the session that we destroy the future of Texas. We cannot allow that. And as I told my colleagues when we had our caucus retreat 2 days ago, this is our opportunity to go from hostage to heroes. And that's what we're gonna do when we elect people like Averie Bishop and Liz Ginsberg. And now I'm presenting to you Averie Bishop, our new incoming with your work representative. Thank you.
Hello, hi. Oh man, I'm fired up. I get so nervous when I speak after you. Hi, my name is Averie Bishop. If I haven't had the privilege of meeting you, I am the Democratic nominee for District 112. That is North Dallas. And I'm running because the incumbent has voted to not increase teacher pay, votes for school vouchers, didn't vote to have federally funded school lunches, is completely anti-public school funding. And it's time that someone like myself, who's pro-education, who has worked in public school classrooms, replace her. Yeah. For the past decade, my mom and I, we have an educational nonprofit, and we raise scholarships for children in impoverished villages afford to go to school. My mom came from a family of 12. She never got to graduate college, and she started working as a maid when she was 13. She didn't get to pursue her education, but she finished high school as valedictorian. And she knew, that's right, I wish my mom was here to hear this because I'm so proud of her. She and my dad, who is a public school bus driver, taught me that I write my own story, that I cannot let anyone else write it for me. And I've learned so many of these lessons over the years of managing my educational nonprofit, serving as Miss Texas in our public school classrooms, and as a volunteer substitute teacher. So I wanted to share 3 really important lessons. The first one is don't let anyone else write your story. And the people, the lawmakers, Angie Chen Button, want to write all of us out of the story. She wants to write me out of the story. She wants to write out young children from families who are working multiple jobs out of the story. And we can't let that happen. That's why I'm running. The second really important lesson is showing up is half the battle. Angie Chen Button is not in the district, and she's extremely inaccessible. At the town hall where they discussed whether or not they should close 5 elementary schools in Richardson ISD, where was Angie? Does anybody know? No one knows, because she wasn't there. I was, and I got to speak to the students and teachers, the children who quite literally stood at a podium to testify in front of the school board crying that they were separated from their friends and now have to cross a 6-lane road to get to their public school elementary school. Showing up is half the battle, and I show up 100% of the time. My incumbent doesn't. The last lesson that's really important to remember, and what I have learned over the course of the past year, is that our future is in our classrooms. Whenever I was teaching, that deserves a round of applause, yes. I specifically remember going to public school classrooms in Karnes County, in Midland, in El Paso, down at the border, and I taught as Miss Texas the importance of tolerance with a children's book that I wrote. And at the end of my lessons, I would always ask the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you get the normal, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a lawyer. And I remember some kids would answer, I want to be a school bus driver. And that reminded me of my dad. And the fact that he ran for mayor of McKinney with no college education. Some kids raised their hand and they wanted to work at the local Taco Bell. And I was like, okay, I'm so supportive of that too. And some kids now want to be YouTube creators. There's so many things these children want to grow up to be, and we have to cultivate this future in our classrooms. But the school voucher scam is going to eliminate the hope and aspirations of the kids here in Texas. Right now, the lawmakers, including Angie Chen Button, the incumbent I'm running against, wants to pass school vouchers, and they purposely and intentionally make it complicated to understand. So here's what you need to know. School vouchers defund our public schools. And right now, our public school classrooms haven't received an increase in basic allotment in 6 years. It has not kept up with inflation. And you know what we are sitting on in Texas? an economic surplus. So why do we not have funding? Because of lawmakers' egos. Let's just get it straight. And so now it's time to remove the incumbent and replace it with someone else, and that's me. I can't wait to walk up with Representative Ramos, Liz Ginsberg, Mihaela Plesa, and personally hand Angie Chen Button's report card. Can anybody say what her letter grade will be? F. All right, thank you guys. Thanks for having me, and I can't wait to introduce you to our next speaker, my lovely sister, Liz Ginsberg. So she and I are running in 2 of the last red standing districts in Dallas County. So when we flip my seat and we flip hers, Dallas will be a Democratic stronghold.
There you go. Thank you so much. Well, hello, friends. My name's Elizabeth Ginsberg, and I am running to be the state representative from House District 108. I'm running against Representative Morgan Meyer. Boo. Yeah, you can boo. That's okay. But you have to vote. I will tell you what, first of all, I'm so grateful for Dallas College, for the Student Government Association, and all of the clubs who put this together, because I don't think there's anything our state does that is more important than funding our public schools. And I don't believe this is really a partisan issue. My guess is there are people in this room, I'm not going to ask you to identify yourself. My bet is we have people across the political spectrum here, because most Texans recognize that public schools really are the hearts of our communities. And I believe that this is an issue that all Texans support. I think this is a values issue. I don't think this is a political issue. And because, because this is a values issue, I wanted to read to you something that's in our Texas Constitution, just to give you an idea how important this is to Texans. Article 7 of the Texas Constitution starts out about support and maintenance of a system of free public schools. And it talks about a general diffusion of knowledge being essential to the preservation of the liberties and rights of the people. It shall be the duty of the legislature of the state to establish and make suitable preparations for the support and maintenance of an efficient system of public free schools. Now that's pretty revolutionary when you think about when they wrote that. That was in the founding of our state. It's one of the foundational ideas that we started with. And that's why it's so important. And we need to talk about this with our friends across the political spectrum, because we are on the side of history. We are on the side of right. We know public education is essential to our community. But my opponent voted for school vouchers. You're going to hear a lot of details today about why this is wrong, why it's bad for Texas, and why it's bad for Texas children. But the first thing you need to know is Morgan Meyer voted for vouchers. Say it with me, y'all. Morgan Meyer voted for vouchers. One more time, really loud, so they can hear that down in the Park Cities. Morgan Meyer voted for vouchers. People are giving him a pass on this because they simply don't know what his vote was. So I need you to repeat that time in and time out. Now, you might ask yourself, why did he vote for vouchers? Why? Well, on a Friday, he voted for vouchers. The following Monday, Greg Abbott endorsed him in his primary. And then whenever you say, well, where's all the money coming from? There's an organization called the American Foundation for Children, Inc. that has already started mailing flyers throughout House District 108, trying to tell people Morgan Meyer is good for education. We know that's a lie, and we know that organization is dark money. The dark money we've been hearing coming from Pennsylvania billionaires, that we hear coming from West Texas. It is dark money coming into our communities, trying to make you think something that is entirely false. It is disinformation, and we can't fall for it. So that's what's going on and why he's doing it. So this is a seat we can win. I want to tell you a little bit about it. We got some polling back recently. I am down by 1 point. This is before any information is shared. When we share information with the voters, we pull ahead by 7. So polls don't vote. People vote, and what we are taking from this is that we have to get out there and share our message. That is, and I need your help. Because when we fight, we win. That's how we're going to save our schools. Right now, when you look at the numbers in the State House, if we flip 3 seats from red to blue, we can save our public schools. It will change the numbers. So let's get it done. You can go to Liz for Texas if you'd like to volunteer. Or let's see, what's the other website where you can volunteer? DemocratsDoSomething.com. That's an easy one to remember, isn't it? Because we're all ready to get busy. So join me, let's get this done. And I think you're gonna be as angry as I am whenever we finish hearing everything today. So thanks so much. So I wanna take this opportunity. We have some incredible candidates on the ballot, and I am so proud to be on the ballot with them. Now, we have our next member of Congress from Congressional District 24. It is my district, and I am so proud to introduce Sam Epler. He is a former math teacher. He has been a principal at an early college high school. He knows education, and I am thrilled to hear from him. We're ready to get him in DC to stand up for us and save our Department of Education.
All right, thanks, Liz. And wow, I'm so excited to make Ana-Maria the next Speaker of the House. Wow. So I'm Sam Epler. I'm running for Congressional District 24 against Beth Van Dyne. Just vote, just like Liz said. And I'm running for federal office, but the path to how I got here went through public education. I did a little program called Teach for America, just like Representative James Talarico. And I taught here in Dallas, Dallas ISD. I taught in West Dallas at Pinkston High School. I then became an assistant principal in Oak Cliff at Molina High School. And then I became the principal of Northlake Early College High School. You know, Dallas College has a special place in my heart. I was the principal of the early college at Northlake, which is the sister school to Richland. And I was so proud to graduate the first graduating class of seniors. 98% of my students, primarily first generation, low income, they graduated not just with a diploma, but with 60 college credit hours and an associate's degree from Dallas College. And as principal, I was focused on that. I was focused on workforce development. I was focused on getting the best math teachers and biology teachers I could to be in my classrooms teaching my students. And that was my focus. And one day I turned on the TV and I saw my congresswoman, and she was advocating to defund the Department of Education. And I said, that is not a serious representative. And is she mine? And she was. And I thought to myself, okay, who's running against her? And I decided to run because of people like Tim Walz, who I actually had the honor to meet last week. And our next Vice President, Tim Walz, sums up public policy with a question. He says, public policy is a very simple question. And the question is, what kind of school buses do you want? What kind of buses do you want your government to buy? I just ruined it. School buses or prison buses? And that question is very provocative. But it's important because one of those is about the future. And public education is about the future. And we cannot let extremists all the way up and down the ballot take away that future from all of us. You know, 94% of us in Texas go to public schools. I'm a proud product of public schools. Our public schools are incredibly important. And as a principal, I saw the ramifications of doing nothing over the last 6 years. You know, I'm introducing a video, and it's about 8 minutes long, and it's a really great video. But this video has to deal with school funding. And the school funding formula, the basic allotment, has not been raised in 6 years. It's $6,160. And we've had countless inflation over the last 6 years that's been eating away. When I was principal, and you know, I was principal before, during, and after the Uvalde shooting, okay? And this state and Greg Abbott decided to pass some laws after that horrific shooting. One of them was to mandate that every school district must place a security officer, an armed security officer, at all their schools. But you know what? He didn't put any money behind it. He's a joke. Dallas ISD gets $6 a student for school security. You know what they need to put a police officer at every school? 212. Okay? When I was principal, we had to cut school bus routes because we had to start doubling up. And as you'll see in this video, only 5% of the allotment formula that school districts take in typically go to transportation. Another 3% goes to nutrition. I mean, these margins are getting squeezed. And it is so very important that we go out there and we re-elect Representative Plesa, we elect Averie Bishop, and we elect Liz Ginsberg, because it's only through the state ledge that we can do that. So, thank you all for being here. Please get involved with their campaigns, with our campaigns, and it's all about getting rid of extremists. People are tired of extremist candidates and representatives representing them because they don't represent our values. So, without further ado, we have an 8-minute and 8-second video. I checked the program. And it's going to teach you all about school funding. So please pay attention. It's a great video. And then after that, you're going to hear from your next State Board of Education, George King, who also is a high school principal, and we need him up there doing our curriculums. Thanks, everybody.
The public education system in Texas is huge and critical to the future of our state. Smart planning and adequate funding are essential to making the system work for each and every Texan. Where does the money for public education come from? Let's break it down. First, think of funding schools like filling up a glass of water. The water in the glass represents the amount of money the Texas legislature allocates to educate each student. The water is sourced from two primary pitchers. The first is school district revenue generated by local property taxes. The second is state funds, which are generated by things like sales taxes, business taxes, and a portion of lottery proceeds. The water glass has the ability to shrink or grow. But many people are surprised to learn that the size of a Texas school district's water glass, or how much money is available for and spent on day-to-day school operations, is decided almost entirely by the state legislature, not school boards or superintendents. Funding formulas designed by the legislature provide school districts with general operating funds, most of which cover salaries for teachers and staff. Other parts of the funding formula are designated for specific priorities like career and technical programs, early childhood education, and more. While the state legislature decides how big the water glass is, how much money the state actually contributes is contingent on the amount of local property taxes generated by a school district. In our complex school funding system, when local property values go up and tax collections increase, local schools do not receive more funding. Instead, the state simply pours less water into the glass, even though more state funds were originally budgeted and intended for public education. But what happens if school district revenue generated by local property taxes is able to fill the whole glass? More water is poured than the glass size can hold. The state collects those overflowing funds in a separate water pitcher that holds general revenues for the state. So when a school district's property tax revenues go up, those dollars are not always reinvested back into our schools. Instead, the state uses its newfound billions to pay for other items in the state budget, or simply holds on to the extra revenue. That doesn't seem right. Money intended for Texas public schools should stay in Texas public schools. Now that you know the basics of how Texas schools are funded and that more money is available for public education, the next question is, are we adequately funding our Texas public schools? Proper funding is needed to prepare every student for a successful future. Texans have high expectations for our public schools, and that means our schools need to maintain their competitiveness with schools across the country. Let's dig a little deeper into how Texas stacks up and what is needed for our schools and our students to be successful. The per-student funding a district receives begins with a set dollar amount for each student. This is known as the basic allotment, which is set at $6,160. Schools receive additional funding based on specific student demographics and district characteristics. So when you add up all these different funding allotments, the average school district in Texas receives about $10,000 per student per year. How does school funding in Texas stack up to the rest of the country? Despite our thriving economy and dramatic population growth, Texas still spends $3,000 to $4,000 below the national average and ranks in the bottom 10 states in student funding. Our glass could be bigger. It should be bigger. Much bigger. According to a Quality Counts report, Florida invests $1,100 more per student. Alabama invests $1,700 more. Louisiana, $3,700 more. Michigan, $4,300 more. And New York spends over $11,000 more per student than Texas. Even California, the only public school system larger than our own, spends $1,600 more per student than Texas. So, if school funding in Texas is like filling a glass of water, in Louisiana, it's more like filling up a jug of water. We are falling behind. Texas competes with these other states for qualified teachers, exceptional workforce programs, and college readiness. Without properly funded public schools, Texas cannot compete. We impede student success, and we weaken the future economy of Texas. Texas is not investing enough in our public schools, and the funding districts receive has to support a number of programs and needs. A good way to understand how school districts allocate their resources is to look at how each dollar is spent, or how the money is poured into our schools. Right off the top, over half of every dollar covers instruction and paying teachers, the backbone of our public schools. The next largest budget category is facility maintenance. Public schools have large physical footprints, and keeping the lights on, the water flowing, the grass cut, and more requires significant resources. Together, paying teachers and maintaining facilities accounts for about 2/3 of public school spending. The remaining third has to stretch a long way. About 15% of funds are provided for additional staff like nurses, counselors, principals, instructional coaches, and district administrators. Just under 10% goes towards basic student needs of transportation to and from school and student meals. Extracurricular programming, including the fine arts and athletics programs that inspire and cultivate student and family enthusiasm, accounts for about 3% of spending. Other needs, like IT infrastructure and school safety provisions, are covered by the remaining funds. This is how school funding supports and maintains well-running schools. As you can see, there isn't much room to trim. Our current school funding system doesn't account for inflation, and we've all felt the impact of rising inflation in our daily lives. Households and school districts have had to tighten their belts like the rest of us. With increasing costs, operational necessities, high expectations, and little room to trim, every public school student suffers when inflation rises without sufficient additional support. With less buying power, all schools, even those in property-wealthy districts, will struggle to retain high-quality teachers, maintain safe and efficient facilities, and preserve programs our kids and families care about. A strong Texas economy depends heavily on student success in college, career, and military readiness. Without proper funding, Texas will fall behind. Public schools are foundational for our state's success. Money matters in education. Tell Texas lawmakers we must do better, because investing in public education is investing in the future of Texas.
Hi, I'm George King, and I'm running for State Board of Education. Thank you. After 40 years of service in public education as a classroom teacher and a campus principal, I decided to throw my hat in the ring for State Board of Education because it just makes sense that a career servant in public ed would serve on the State Board of Education. You'd be surprised that of the 15 members on the State Board, very few of them have any public school experience. So when I watched that video, a lot of the anxiety I had as a principal began to resurface because it hits near to what I faced year after year. I was principal of the second largest high school in the state of Texas. The enrollment grew every single year, yet the number of teachers that I could assign to these classrooms shrunk every year, and it's a direct result of this flat per pupil allotment that hasn't increased since 2018. And so what does that mean? So that means student-teacher ratios go up, classroom sizes get bigger, teacher burnout is the inevitable byproduct of that. If we ever wondered why teachers are leaving the profession, this is perhaps the most compelling piece, is that as teachers have to supervise more children, as they have to grade more papers, as they have to spend more time planning outside of the classroom, the burnout factor really kicks in. And so it is no wonder why we have teachers leaving this profession. We must stop the bleeding. We must get that $33 billion that's being held hostage by our governor. And we must put that towards the basic allotment. It should not sit flat for 6 years at $6,100. It needs to be dramatically increased, and that's how we fix that problem. Now, the State Board of Education actually met a couple of weeks ago to conduct a public hearing regarding these Christianized curriculum materials for K through 5, the Bible story-infused curriculum that they're proposing. And there was a day's worth of testimony, and there were clergy, and there were teachers and professors who all came to testify. And overwhelmingly, the voice of the people said that we must protect the separation of church and state, and yes. And we must prevent this Bible study curriculum from being included in our elementary school classrooms. And I talked to an official of the American Federation of Teachers, and I said, you know, because they're a watchdog group of the SBOE and other government agencies, and I said, surely the State Board of Education, who are elected to serve their constituents, right? Surely in the face of that overwhelming public sentiment about not allowing these materials to come to pass, surely the State Board would vote to not include these materials. And the AFT representative said, oh no, this is a part of the governor's checklist. They're doing the governor's bidding. This is the governor's plan to Christianize and privatize public education. And I thought about that as the frustration swelled, and I said, you know what, I've got a checklist too. And on my checklist is first and foremost to make sure that those Bible study materials do not come into our classrooms. Preserve the separation of church and state, protect the Establishment Clause, and those materials should not pass. You know, I was a world history teacher of many years, and I will tell you that teaching world religions, probably some of the most engaging lessons for young people to learn is those world religions. But the difference was that it was a balanced presentation of all world religions, and what this, as the Texas Freedom Network in the study of these Christianized materials has said, this is an overemphasis of Christianity at the exclusion of other religions. And I think back about the classrooms of our children, inclusivity is the most important piece to their success. And when children of other faiths other than Christianity would sit in those classrooms, imagine this, and they're being confronted with these Bible stories like Immaculate Conception and miracles and the resurrection as purported to be true. And these children are going to feel less and less included in the lessons of the day. And when children don't feel included and don't feel like they belong, their capacity to achieve is diminished. And so this simply cannot be. Another item on my checklist is going to be the State Board of Education is taking up curriculum revision K through 12 in social studies in 2025. And I want to remind you of that anti-critical race theory bill that sailed through the Texas legislature back in 2021. That same ideology intends to roost on that curriculum revision in 2025. And so I need to be there in Austin. As a former social studies teacher, I want to protect the inclusivity of our children. I want to make sure that important stories like slavery, voter disenfranchisement, segregation, Jim Crow, the civil rights movement. I want to make sure that those stories are told accurately, completely, and that no one story gets distorted or diminished, and no one's voice is excluded. We simply must have all of our children learn these lessons and feel like their story is included too. Now, when I get elected and go to Austin, I intend to lead on all fronts related to public education. So allow me, congresspeople, for a moment to stray into the topic of vouchers, because as a campus principal, I will tell you that the most troubling aspect of this voucher scheme is that it does not include our most vulnerable children. I want you to think about children who are served by special education, children who served under Section 504, our English language learners. If they were to go and apply for a private school, those schools don't have the infrastructure or the capacity to teach those children, and so their application would be denied right out of the chute based on that. Our most vulnerable families of modest income, how does a $8,000 or $10,000 pay for a $20,000 tuition? That's like giving them a 10-foot ladder in a 20-foot hole. It simply does not do anything to address our most vulnerable people. So this is why I need to go to Austin. 40 years of service is a voice that simply must be represented on that state board. I may not have mentioned this, but my opponent has absolutely no service in public education. And so I want to be there to champion public schools. So vote for me, George King. If there's anything you can say, George has 40 years, his opponent has none. Enough said, right? And now I get to introduce the Honorable Mihaela Plesa. Mihaela was named Freshman State Representative of the Year in her first term. And if you spend any time with Mihaela, you can say, I can see how she got that. She's a go-getter. She is a product of Plano Schools and the ESL, English as a Second Language program. She's a product of that. That's one of the many great things that public schools do, right? And then finally, she just flipped the seat this last time for House District 70 against an opponent that had a $4 million war chest. Hers was a grassroots candidacy, and she flipped the seat. Mihaela Plesa.
Thank you, George. Thank you, my friend George King, everybody who I have endorsed in this race. We got to get him elected. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mihaela Plesa, and I am the first Democrat to represent Collin County in the Texas House of Representatives in 32 years. I am also a proud product of Plano Public Schools. When I was a little girl at Brinker Elementary, I did not speak any English. I want to make one more note. I am also the first Romanian American ever elected in Texas, and only one of 2 elected in the whole nation. And my parents always told me, she'll learn English at school. We got to teach her Romanian in the home, and the public school system, they're going to teach her English. So when I got to Brinker Elementary, it was real hard, because back in the early 90s, Plano ISD didn't have the robust English second language program that it has now. Now in Plano ISD, we cater to over 200 different languages. But back in the early 90s, there was really just one. And that's why I can speak Spanish today. But it was also something else. You know, I would open those textbooks up, and I would always look for, like, the Romanian influence. I would always look for the Romanian history. What did Romanians contribute to the building of this great country? What did Romanians contribute to the globalization of this world? And let me tell you, it was pretty grim, you guys. We got like communism. We got like gymnastics. And sometimes we got Dracula. So, but that's why when I became a state representative, I recognized what it means to take history out of the books. I understood what it meant to discriminate against those who might need a little extra help in their classrooms. And that's why I'm proud to be the only state representative from Collin County to vote against Greg Abbott's voucher scam. Do y'all like my shirt? Do y'all like my shirt? This is what this election is about. It's about protecting our public schools. The state of Texas educates 5 million children. That is the workforce of tomorrow. We cannot shortchange our children. And that's why I am going to continue to vote against Greg Abbott voucher scam. And I don't care if he takes another $10 million from those voucher scammers. I know they're coming for me. I know they're mad. But we're going to make them real, real mad on November 5th. You guys, I got the greatest people endorsed against me. Governor Abbott has endorsed my opponent. Ted Cruz has endorsed my opponent. Dan Patrick has endorsed my opponent. Ken and Angela Crooked Paxton has endorsed my opponent. And Don Huffines has endorsed my opponent. I didn't even know he was still relevant, but I guess he's still around. Because these people want to take us back. They want to take us back to a time when kids did not have access to technology in their classrooms. They want to take us back to a time when women could not even get a credit card if they were not married. We cannot go back, you guys. We have made too much progress. We cannot go back. And that's why I'm asking you guys. The reason I am so casual today is because before I came here, I already knocked 100 doors, talking to voters where there are about the importance of this election. Because yes, I did flip a seat last cycle, and I did go up against the biggest war chest. But it's not just about me. We gotta elect Averie Bishop. We gotta elect Liz Ginsberg. We gotta elect George King. We gotta elect those candidates down in Bexar County. That is the only way that we protect public education. And there isn't anyone else that knows about flipping seats and going against big dark money than one of my friends, Representative James Talarico. I just want to tell you guys a little bit about my friend James. So before I was a legislator, I was a staffer for 6 years in the building. I was watching the big guys on the screen in an office that did not have my name on it. And when I would see James come up, I knew it was going to be good. I knew he was ready, and I knew he was going to get these Republicans where it hurt. Because James ran in a competitive seat. He knew how to talk to people about policies and not partisan issues. And not only did he know how to do it, but he knew how to do it with swagger. James Talarico came into the Texas House as the youngest member in that body, and he came in and he acted like one of the senior members. He passed legislation that nobody else could have passed, like voting rights, okay? He fought for us. And that's what I aspire to be as a state representative. Someone that was of the people and for the people. And the other thing about my friend James is he calls it like he sees it. And one thing he's been talking a lot about is Christian nationalism. The reason they're trying to defund our schools, the reason they're trying to privatize our systems is because they are trying to indoctrinate our kids. Where have we heard that before? It's called projection. I took a little psychology when I was in undergrad. But James knows what it's about, and he calls it like it is, and he tells it like it is, and that's why I am so honored today to introduce my good friend, Representative James Talarico, a proud, proud fighter of public education. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to start with a thank you. Thank you for sending Mihaela to the Texas State Capitol. She is by far one of the most effective legislators in that body. As a freshman, I know she just talked a lot about me, but Mihaela passed a lot more bills her freshman session than I did back in 2019. Y'all have one of the best legislators in the House representing y'all back in Austin. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. I have been traveling the state over the last few weeks, campaigning for Texas Democrats up and down the ticket. I was in Amarillo and Wichita Falls. I went over to Beaumont, down to Corpus Christi and Laredo. I was in Houston last weekend. I'm in DFW this weekend. We did 4 events today. We're doing 3 events tomorrow. We're trying to do everything we can to get out the vote for Texas Democrats. And I tell you, I don't think people around the country realize how close we are to turning Texas blue. Donald Trump won this state by only 5 points in 2020. Ted Cruz won his last race by only 2.5 points in 2018. Texas is the biggest battleground state in the country. And this year we've got an incredible candidate, my friend Collin Allred. Collin, as y'all probably know, Collin played football at Baylor before becoming a voting rights lawyer. And like me, Collin is the son of a single mom. And so as a congressman, he is fighting every single day to give every Texan the chance to chase their version of the American dream. And now he's running against the worst senator in America. On January 6th, Ted Cruz plotted to overturn the 2020 election and fan the flames of insurrection. During the blackout that killed 700 of our fellow Texans, Ted Cruz hopped on a flight to Cancun, leaving his constituents and his own dog to shiver in the dark. And when Donald Trump called Heidi Cruz ugly, Ted Cruz endorsed him anyway. If Ted Cruz will abandon his wife, his dog, and his country, what makes you think he won't abandon you? Collin Allred will never abandon Texas, and he will never abandon you. Right-wing extremists like Ted Cruz have taken over our state, and it's time to take Texas back. You know, these right-wing extremists, they're giving our state a bad name all over the country, all over the world. I'm an 8th generation Texan. My family's been here since it was Mexico. And I remember that we Texans used to be known for our hospitality. Our nickname is the Friendly State. If you look up our official state motto, it's friendship. The word Texas comes from the Caddo Native American word for friend. What's interesting is that they didn't use that word to describe a friend in their own tribe. They used it to describe a friend in a different tribe. Friendship across lines of difference. Friendship amidst diversity. That's what makes Texas so great. We're this big mashup of all these different people and all these different cultures. I mentioned that I was in Corpus Christi. After that event, I walked over to the water. It was sunset, and I got to see the Selena Memorial. And if you've never been, I encourage you to go see it. It's a beautiful place. And I started thinking, when you listen to a Selena song, you're hearing Spanish vocal styles from northern Mexico, but you're also hearing polka dance rhythms from Czech and German immigrants. This uniquely Texan ability to welcome new friends, welcome new ideas, has made us one of the most exciting and innovative states in the country. We're the state that put a man on the moon. We're the state that pioneered ranching and energy and computers. We're the state that gave this country Barbara Jordan, Ann Richards, LBJ, and the Great Society. We're the state that put breakfast in a taco. And we are still developing new technologies, new industries, new art. Our own Beyonce just came out with a country album. Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick, they don't understand Texas or what makes us great. Shutting down diversity programs at colleges and universities, a total abortion ban, anti-immigrant laws, Christian nationalism. In the words of the great Beyonce Knowles, this ain't Texas. And I want to focus for a minute on the abortion ban, because our constituents are reeling from this every single day. When Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade, Texas Republicans in the legislature banned abortion even in cases of rape, incest, and threats to the woman's health. Since that day, 26,000 Texas women have been forced to give birth to their rapist's baby. Infant and maternal mortality have spiked. Pregnant women with life-threatening complications are being told to wait in emergency room parking lots until they go into sepsis. This has never been about life. This has always been about controlling women. In some Texas counties, Republican politicians are banning women from using public highways to travel out of state to get an abortion. Donald Trump is saying that he's going to let red states monitor women's pregnancies. And if you haven't read the latest Texas GOP platform, it calls for the death penalty for any woman who gets an abortion. Republican extremism is killing women right here in our state. And now they are promising to take those deadly policies nationwide. And if they win in November, God help us. Outside of abortion, there are probably two things that people around the country have heard about Texas lately: private school voucher scams and Ken Paxton. And those two things are very much related. So in May of last year, a bipartisan coalition of Republicans and Democrats in the Texas House voted to impeach our corrupt Attorney General. But then a couple months later, the Texas Senate voted to acquit Ken Paxton on all charges, restoring the most corrupt politician in our state to the office of top cop. But just weeks before that impeachment trial in the Senate, our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, who was supposed to preside impartially over that trial, took $3 million from two of Ken Paxton's billionaire buddies, Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks. Those two billionaire megadonors that bought Ken Paxton's acquittal are the exact same billionaire megadonors who are funding this effort to privatize our public schools with a voucher scam. When you read the newspaper or you turn on the TV, you hear about the politicians, Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick, but you don't hear about the puppet masters who are pulling the strings behind the scenes. Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks are increasingly controlling our state government. They're oil and gas oligarchs from West Texas, but they're also Christian nationalist pastors. For those that have read the New Testament, I know billionaire pastor sounds like an oxymoron, but on Sunday mornings, these two billionaires are preaching at these far-right churches. And they don't preach a theology of universal love like the kind many of us were brought up with. They preach a theology of power, control, and domination. They say climate change is God's will. They say homosexuality is the same thing as pedophilia. They say only Christians have a right to serve in public office. In fact, they told the former Republican Speaker of the Texas House, Joe Strauss, that he didn't have a right to be Speaker because he's Jewish. I know this term Christian nationalism is new for some of us. My granddad was a Baptist preacher in South Texas. I've been going to the same church since I was 2 years old. I'm now in seminary studying to become a minister myself. My faith means more to me than anything. So let me say this as clearly as I can. There is nothing Christian about Christian nationalism. It is the worship of power, social power, economic power, political power in the name of Christ. And it is a betrayal of Jesus of Nazareth. Have you ever noticed that it's the politicians who talk the most about being a Christian who are the least Christ-like? You can't call yourself a Christian and deny health care to the sick. You can't call yourself a Christian and cut food stamps for the poor. You can't call yourself a Christian and reject the stranger seeking asylum at our southern border. You can't call yourself a Christian and destroy God's creation by polluting our air and our water. And you certainly can't call yourself a Christian and discriminate against your neighbor because of their race, gender, or sexual orientation. I personally know plenty of Hindus, Buddhists, Jews, Muslims, Sikhs, and atheists who are more Christ-like than some of the self-proclaimed Christians serving in elected office. But the scariest part about Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks is not their toxic theology. It's that they're turning that toxic theology into law. They are spending their vast fortunes turning our beloved Texas into an authoritarian theocracy. They are buying politicians. A majority of Republicans in the Texas House have taken their money. And get this, every single Republican state senator has taken their money. But they don't just buy politicians, they also fund a sprawling network of right-wing think tanks and advocacy organizations and media outlets. They are spending billions undermining democracy in the second largest state in the country. This is the biggest story in American politics, and not enough people are talking about it. And just like Dan Patrick did their bidding in the Ken Paxton impeachment trial, Greg Abbott has done their bidding by calling special session after special session to pass their private school voucher scam. If their goal is a theocracy, then the last thing they want is an honest attorney general. If they want a theocracy, the last thing they want are well-funded public schools that teach the next generation how to think for themselves. Those are obstacles in their way. In the states that have tried these voucher scams, they don't improve student performance, but they do siphon off billions of dollars from our already underfunded public schools, because that's the point. That's the goal. Voucher scams are part of a coordinated effort by wealthy special interests to dismantle public education in this state and in this country. And they know it's unpopular. Texans love their public schools. Public education is enshrined in our state's Constitution. And there's nothing more Texan than Friday Night Lights. Because public schools bring us together. In a time when we're so polarized, in a time when we're so disconnected, public schools bring us together. And that's why they are a threat to the enemies of democracy. You don't have a democracy if you don't have public schools. So, Texans have been fending off voucher scams since the first one was proposed in 1957 in the Texas legislature. And for the history buffs in the room, you know that was just 3 years after the Brown versus Board of Education decision came down from the Supreme Court. That first voucher scam was a deliberate attempt to resegregate public schools in the state of Texas. But every decade they've been brought up since '57, Texans of all backgrounds have said no. It's because they don't work. They're bad public policy. So they're unpopular. That's why these billionaire mega donors have had to come up with some nice-sounding slogans to sell their scam. Chief among them is school choice. I'm all for choice. I think you should choose what you do with your own body. I think you should choose who you marry. I think you should choose what you read, where you travel. And I also think we need more choice in our public education system. We need more magnets, more academies, more early college high schools. We need to make it easier for folks to travel between public schools. We need more choice. But voucher scams are not choice. They're not school choice, they're the school's choice. Because private schools can deny admission to any kid for any reason they want. They can deny admission because of your academics, because of your behavior, because you're not the right cultural fit. Private schools don't have to provide transportation to kids whose parents can't take them to school every morning. Private schools don't have to provide special education services to our kids with special needs. And I'll remind you that 151 counties, a majority of counties in the state of Texas, don't have a single private school. So how is it choice for kids up in the Panhandle when there's not a private school for hundreds of miles? How is it choice when the cost of the voucher doesn't even cover the full cost of tuition at most private schools in Texas? I was a public school teacher before I ran for office. I taught 6th grade at Rhodes Middle School on the west side of San Antonio. I often say teaching middle school is the best preparation for serving in the Texas legislature. But the west side of San Antonio is a beautiful, historic Mexican-American neighborhood. It's also one of the poorest zip codes in the state of Texas. Every day, my students struggled heroically to overcome poverty, overcome racism, overcome systems that were designed to hold them and their families back. I taught in an underfunded school. I taught 45 kids in one classroom. There weren't enough desks for all of my students, so I had kids sitting on the air conditioning unit. In the wealthiest country in human history, in the 21st century, children sitting on the air conditioning unit. Texas ranks 43rd in the nation in per-student education funding. Texas teachers are making less than they did 10 years ago when you adjust for inflation. And local property taxpayers are trying to stop the bleeding at the local level while the state government fails to do its fair share of school funding. We have a school funding emergency in this state, and it is the fault of one man, Governor Greg Abbott. Mihaela and I, we got to the session in January, and we had a $33 billion budget surplus. That's billion with a B. She and I worked on a bill in the first month of session that would have used just half of that historic surplus to give every Texas teacher a $15,000 pay raise. That's how much money. Half of that surplus is a $15K pay raise and a 25% pay bump for school support staff, bus drivers, custodial staff, paraprofessionals, cafeteria workers. The money is there. But do you know how much of that $33 billion surplus Greg Abbott invested in our students and our teachers? Zero. Unconscionable. Immoral. Unacceptable. These are the stakes of this election. But I don't want to get off the stage before I also say that they're not just coming for our schools. They're coming for our health care. And this is personal for me. When I first ran for this seat, I almost died. I was a healthy 28-year-old running for the Texas House. And I was behind in my race. I was running in a red district. So I decided to pull a stunt. And I walked 25 miles across the entire length of my district, all in one day. And I held town halls along the way. I wasn't worried about my ability to do the walk. I hike Big Bend every year. But halfway through the walk, I started to feel fatigued and nauseous. I threw up a couple times on that walk. Somehow I finished. I don't know how, but I finished. I figured I was severely dehydrated. So after the walk, I went home, I went to bed, and I slept for 36 hours straight. My parents got concerned. They rushed me to the ER where nurses checked my blood sugar. I'd never had my blood sugar tested before. They told me a normal blood sugar is below 100. Mine was 900. They immediately diagnosed me with type 1 diabetes. I was in a state of diabetic ketoacidosis, which leads to coma and death without insulin. I was lucky to be alive. And when I got out of the ICU, I went to Walgreens to pick up my first 30-day supply of insulin, this new medicine that I now needed to live. And it cost me $684. I didn't have that kind of money, so I put it on a credit card. Many Texans with diabetes cannot afford their insulin, so they ration or skip doses, and some of them die because of it. All because Big Pharma has manipulated and monopolized the global insulin market, jacking up prices to maximize profit. So when I won that race and I got into the Texas House, I worked with Republicans and Democrats to pass a bill that caps insulin copays in the state of Texas at $25 per prescription. And then after we did that here in Texas, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris capped insulin at $35 for Medicare recipients. We have done good work fighting Big Pharma, but Project 2025 threatens to undo our progress. If Trump wins, he's going to let Big Pharma jack up prices again. But as Vice President Harris is fond of saying, we are not going back. You know, I won that race in a red district. It was in Williamson County, Texas. Hadn't voted for a Democrat since before I was in kindergarten. And it voted for Trump 2 years before I ran. And I flipped that district. And I learned some important lessons about working in a red area. And I think it may apply to some of the work that you're doing up here. Democrats often think that voters vote with their brains. But we don't. We vote with our hearts and with our gut. Our policy proposals, our 12-point plans, they're important. But Democrats, we've got to start talking about our values. Because the Republican Party, they claim to be the party of freedom, family, and faith. But we know that you can't be the party of freedom and control women's bodies. You can't be the party of family and love your guns more than our kids. And you cannot be the party of faith and worship at the feet of Donald Trump. The Republican Party is not the party of freedom, family, and faith. They are the party of bullies, bigots, and billionaires. And it's exactly why we have to defeat them this November. I am confident that with the candidates in this room, with the organizers in this room, with Colin Allred and Kamala Harris leading the way, we are going to move this beautiful state and this beautiful country forward come November. Thank y'all for having me. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you so much, Representative Talarico. That was great to have you here. Great to be able to have all our speakers that were here today. And I want you guys to know, I want to point out to you, we know that probably everybody in this auditorium, and it was a good turnout, wasn't it? But everybody in this auditorium is going to vote for these folks. But let me tell you what, right? Yeah, but let me tell you what's even more important for us to take away today is that we need to work to get these people elected. We need to be, that's right, we need to be out there knocking on doors. If it's uncomfortable, it'll get comfortable, y'all. Nobody woke up in the first day thinking, I wish I could knock on doors. It'll get comfortable. And it will be energizing. It's great. I mean, I really enjoy it. I think that most people would. But also, there are other things to do. There are phone banks to have. There are donations to make. There are signs that you can deliver. There are ways that you can get in touch with these candidates, with the candidates that are justices. But by the way, the justices and the judges that are here today, they are extremely important to us in Texas. We have seen what happens when we're given these judges that are far right free reign. They take away our freedom, and we need to have our good judges, our good Democrat judges on these seats. Re-elect and elect these judges. I'm preaching to the choir, I know that, but what I want to say to you is please find a way to get involved. There are all kinds of levels to get involved in. Please get involved. Thank you. It has been a great honor to have all of you here today. Our candidates that have been able to speak with us and share with us their vision, their passion for saving Texas public schools. Thank you all for how much you care and how much you have supported them in the past and what you will do going forward. Before I leave, there's a couple of people that came in I want to give a shout out to. Rachel Mello is here. She is running for State Senate District 8. She needs your support. And Judge Chica and Anya. Thank you for coming today. Sorry I couldn't say your name properly. So, the one thing I want to say before we go, can I just give one more round of applause to the Student Government Association for today? If you all would stand up wherever you are, come back in from wherever you are. They're out. As you're leaving, say hi to them. Thank them for the work that they've done today. This was just a beautiful, beautiful presentation, and they were very much responsible for that. So thank you. And thank you all for coming. Please look for the next thing that you can do with us. Thanks.